um, all about the capacity building programme for communities, which is an opportunity that's rising at the moment for communities in the west of England as part of the Community Climate and Nature Action Project that we coordinate. So just a couple of bits of housekeeping before we jump in. So you will have seen, we are recording the session and we will share the recording with you afterwards, and we'll also pop it on our website in case you want to listen again. And if anyone doesn't want to be recorded when we get to the Q&A session later, then please just turn your camera off. My colleague Claire and I are going to be sharing some slides with you. And whilst we're doing that, we'll have you all on mute, but then obviously we can all unmute for the Q&A session a little bit later. And we're also joined by my colleague Reem, who is keeping an eye on the chat, and she's going to be sharing some useful links in the chat as well, and driving the slides for me. So thank you in advance, Reem. And there's a couple more people joining. So I'll just pause for 1 minute till they've come in. So welcome. If you've just joined, my name's Amy. We're recording the session, and please do introduce yourself in the chat. So just to recap, this is an information session being hosted by Bristol Climate Nature Partnership about the capacity building programme as part of the Community Climate Nature Action Project. So next slide, please, Reem, if that's okay. So I just wanted to kick off. I'm going to be sharing a little bit in the first section of the information session to give a little bit of background and context to the Community Climate and Nature Action Project that we've been running in Bristol over the last 5 years. And I guess it's all about trying to catalyse and build upon the power of community that exists everywhere. So thinking about the community infrastructure that exists everywhere in the West of England region, but also across the whole country. Utilising, catalysing community as a valuable and essential civic asset for mobilising climate and nature action. And I just popped in this lovely little graphic illustration, which is one of my favourites. I'll just give you a moment to have a look, because I think it just, in a nutshell, encapsulates why we think and feel that community is so important in terms of how the West of England goes about its climate and nature journey. So next slide, please, Reem. So I'm just going to share a little bit more about the Community Climate and Nature Action Project. To an extent, it does as it says on the tin, in the fact that it's all about taking local action on climate and nature, but it's really also about developing the capacity and leadership of community sector when it comes to climate and nature. But most importantly, it isn't just about climate and nature, it's about social priorities in tandem with climate and nature. So also really thinking about how we can improve quality of life for local people as we're taking climate and nature action and trying to address systemic inequality. A key element of the project and what the capacity building programme is intrinsically connected to is the co-creation of community climate and nature action plans that are developed with, by and for communities and community organisations. And as I said earlier, it's really about trying to catalyse that community, that BCSE sector that is thriving in our region to act as an agents of change when it comes to climate and nature. And so we're sort of specifically talking about non-climate specialist organisations whose bread and butter and day-to-day is about community and working with communities. And as I mentioned, we've been working on this for the last 5 years in Bristol. So we've tried some things, we've learned some things have gone well, some things haven't, and we've refined them. But we've developed a model, so a place-based model for community-led climate and nature action that we are now taking forward and sort of going to be testing and refining within the wider West of England region. And all of this work, the last 5 years, and also the work we're going to be doing over the next 3 years, is very kindly supported by the National Lottery's Climate Action Funds, and we're super grateful for their investment within our region. So if we just go on to the next slide, please, Reem. So I mentioned that over the last 5 years, we have been developing this place-based model for community-led climate and nature action. And it's encapsulated here in a nice visual, in a graphic illustration. And when it comes to the capacity building programme that you and your organisations and communities are potentially interested in, we're thinking mainly about this foundational stage, so that the soil and the worms down there. So building from the foundations up, but it's also going to be connecting to those bits in the salmon pink. Some of the activities are on there. And we'll put a link in the chat to the model document and also send it around in an email afterwards, so you can just see and understand a little bit more about this holistic model that we've been developing in Bristol. Next slide, please, Reem. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on the types of communities that we have been working with and that we hope to work with. So as I mentioned, particularly targeting community and VCSE sector organisations rather than climate and nature specific organisations. And to date, we've had the absolute pleasure and privilege of collaborating with 17 very different community organisations in Bristol, who've all developed their own community-led climate and nature action plans. And they've been a mixture of geographic, demographic and communities of interest. So we've got 10 different communities of place from across the city. The majority of those are ones that communities that are experiencing social and economic disadvantage. And we've worked with quite a lot of sort of community anchor organisations that we have in Bristol, but that also exist in other places. So, for example, Lockleys Neighbourhood Trust. We have very intentionally been working with specific demographic communities. So we've done a lot of work with Bristol's community of disabled people, with refugee and migrant community in the city, with older people, and some work with younger people in the creative sector. And started to sort of scratch the surface in terms of communities of interest, because they are also really important in terms of where people come together and where people meet. So we've started working with sporting organisations. So we worked with Gloucestershire County Cricket Club and have done some work with the arts sector with Rising Arts Agency. And so in this next phase of the project, in terms of the 6 new community organisations from the west of England, we're really looking to try and complement the community organisations that we've already worked with in Bristol, sorts of different types. We know there's gaps. And also, Bristol is Bristol, and every place is unique, and we want to be able to test out the model in different contexts. So really looking at the different contexts within the wider west of England area. So thinking about rural communities, farming communities, thinking about the different political makeup that we might find in different parts of the region, thinking about the coastal part and some of the sort of former industrial areas that we see within the west of England. So yeah, it just gives you a bit of a flavour of the communities we've been working with and those that we are hoping to work with. So next slide, please, Reem. So before we go into a little bit more detail about the capacity building programme, I'm just going to briefly share a bit about the wider project of which the capacity building programme is part of. So we're lucky, we've got funding from the National Lottery for the next 3 years to work in the wider West of England area, but also do some national influencing. And these are the key elements of this phase 3 of our community climate nature action project. So as I've said, testing the model within the context of the wider west of England and the communities within it. So particularly running this capacity building programme with 6 new communities, 2 from North East Somerset, 2 from South Gloucestershire, 2 from North Somerset. We're also got a creative strand running throughout the project, and that's something that has been embedded in the project right from the beginning. And we've produced a climate and creativity insights report, and we'll share the link to that. We think creativity is a really good way of sometimes having difficult conversations as a more relatable way of engaging more and more diverse people in climate conversations. So we've embedded it, and there will be 6 community level creative commissions for the 6 community organisations that have that are selected to participate in the capacity building programme. And we will also have a larger creative commission that's going to focus on a particular demographic community, possibly older people, possibly LGBTQ plus community, to respond to some demographic gaps. Over the last 3 years, we have developed a community leadership panel on climate and just transition within Bristol. And we are going to be developing and evolving that further to have a community leadership panel that's serving communities across the wider West of England area. So that's going to be another important part of phase 3 of the project. And then, Reem, if we can just jump onto the next one. A few other bits of this phase of the project. We're going to be continuing with our climate and disability programme, and we've done quite a lot of deep work with a lot of partners over the last 2 years in Bristol around that, and we think it's really, really important. We are going to continue to sort of sustain this ecosystem, this amazing ecosystem of community organisations that we've developed within Bristol. And we've got a community climate and nature action network that's going to be meeting. And we've also got 6 brilliant community advocates that have got a day a week of paid time to be supporting across the project, including doing some mentoring and support for 6 new communities in the west of England. We've also got a colleague, Mark Leach from Bristol City Council, who's embedded within the project, and he's doing some local authority advocacy work across the region, but also across the whole of the country. So sharing some of the insights and lessons of local authorities working with communities on climate and nature, and supporting partners across the country to have a think about how they can do that locally. And we're also doing some national policy influencing. So we've got a series of roundtables, and we've got some research going on with UWE. So we can just jump onto the next slide, please, Reem. So just to wrap this bit up, just so you're aware of who's involved in the project. So ourselves from Bristol Climate Nature Partnership are the lead on it. We've got colleagues from UWE who are working on the evaluation and the policy work. As I mentioned, we've got Mark from Bristol City Council doing local authority support. We've also got Centre for Sustainable Energy, and they've been a core partner on the project right from the beginning. So they're helping holistically because they've got a huge amount of experience within their communities team, but also some specific support around carbon monitoring and carbon footprint, and also supporting with some climate comms and kind of mapping climate messages with sort of climate outreach segmentation that they've done some great work on. West of England Combined Authority is also a core partner in the project. And I mentioned earlier, we've got these 6 great community advocates from Bristol who will be supporting across the project. And there's just a list there of the 6 community anchor organisations that they come from. And then I'm going to jump on to the next slide, if that's okay, Reem. So just to say a little bit about, what do we mean about climate and nature action? And I think it manifests in many different ways, in many different forms, and it is happening day in, day out in every part of our region, in every community at the moment. It might not necessarily be labelled as climate and nature action. It sort of manifests in many different ways, and there's kind of a lot of intersection between climate and nature action that is building and creating other opportunities and benefits for local people. So it might be around health and well-being, developing green skills for young people that responds to social mobility. It might be tackling and reducing social isolation of older people. It might be doing work around the reduction of energy and food poverty locally. Or it might look like communities coming together to tackle social cohesion and division. So many, many, many forms, and it can look like many different things. And we've got a nice image here of the lovely Nobby from Ambition Lawrence Weston Men in Sheds project, who's one of the climate champions from Bristol. And so what it looks like in reality in communities across the region, it might be men in sheds, it might be repair cafes, it might be community gardens that are tackling mental health or providing food for older people. It might be communities coming together to have peace feasts. or surplus food supper clubs, or community fridges, all those kinds of things. Many, many, many different manifestations of what it looks like. And it's delivering on climate and nature goals, but it's also delivering on lots of social and community needs as well. And in terms of community organisations, what do we mean by that? Who are the types of organisations? Really, really broad. We are talking about the community and the civic VCSE organisations that exist everywhere, that are the kind of the very fabric of our society. And that could look like women's institutes, it might be young farmers organisations, it could be cricket, football clubs, or it might be carers groups, or it might be local arts organisations, or different local organisations or networks that are working on particular equalities organisations. So, and many, many, many more, of which they are in the region. So a little bit of a flavour. And then next slide, Reem. I just wanted to say a little bit about why. Why might you be interested in participating in the capacity building programme, and why you might be interested in creating a community climate and nature action plan with, by and for your community. So just pulled together a few highlights from working with our community partners in Bristol. At the moment, we are sadly living in quite divisive and divided times. So it can provide an opportunity for the community to come together around a shared positive vision for the future, but also a sort of strategic plan and roadmap of how to turn that vision and those priorities into action, both community organisations themselves, but also collaboration, partnerships with other local partners and local authorities. We've definitely seen that it helps to open the doors to new funding and new strategic partnerships. A lot, in fact, I think pretty much all funders, kind of philanthropic organisations, are now including climate as a key criteria of any funds, not just climate funds, of any funds. So it's a really good thing to be able to help bolster your organisational sustainability. And I'm sure many of you, as with us, know that the challenges at the moment of securing funding to keep doing the good work that we all do, it's a constant challenge. Anything that kind of helps that process is really good. It can really help in terms of raising the profile of your organisation strategically within your local authority area or within the region. And we've definitely seen that with some of the community partners that we've worked with, who started off start the process very small, some of them completely volunteer run, and by going through this process and other things have developed and evolved into bigger, better resourced organisations that have got permanent staff and venues and things like that. So it can be a really good catalyst that help, but by raising the profile of the organisation through this programme, it can really help. And on the flip side, obviously, there's benefits to your organisation and your community, but there's some wider holistic benefits to the region. And it's really important that how your local authorities and the West of England, when we go about developing our strategic response as a region to climate crisis, nature and biodiversity crisis, that we do that in a way that incorporates and involves a really diverse range of citizens are involved in shaping that, to ensure that policy and those plans is representative of all the different types of people living, working, playing across the region, but also, hopefully to make it more fit for purpose. We've seen some examples where across the country where maybe that hasn't been done so much, and sometimes big changes are implemented, that social mandate isn't there, and sometimes you get a bit of citizen backlash, which can be problematic. That can slow things down. There can be loss of trust and division. So we think this process helps to kind of unify things and bring more people into shaping and sharing priorities. And it's hard doing stuff on your own. As small organisations working in the community sector, that can be a real challenge. So coming together, having a bit of an alliance, a community of practice, a bit of allyship, is really, really important. And joining this programme, becoming one of the 6 new communities, you'd be joining together with the 17 community organisations we've got in Bristol, and creating this sort of critical mass of community influence and support and advocacy of working together, which helps make change easier and gives more voice and agency to the community sector. And then lastly, one thing that's really important in Bristol, we've got what we call a just transition declaration and just transition principles. So that idea that in the region, we want to make sure that as we go on a journey to decarbonise and respond to climate and nature crises, we do so in a way that is fair and representative of all our communities, but that intentionally kind of addresses systemic inequality, doesn't compound it, and importantly, it doesn't create any new barriers for certain communities. We've definitely seen that a lot with some of the climate and disability work that we've been doing, that unintentionally sometimes when taking climate and nature action, if we haven't involved certain communities in the process, then some of the things that are implemented actually create more barriers for communities that are already experiencing exclusion or disadvantage. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that we have a just transition within the west of England, and that we are creating new opportunities, particularly for those who need them the most, or those that are going to be most vulnerable to the negative impacts of climate change. So next slide, please, Reem. I think I'm almost there. What I would say is, don't take my word for it. So we've put up a few snippets here from some of our community partners that we've been working with in Bristol, and I'll just give you a moment to have a look at those. That's sharing some of the advantages and the benefits they felt from going through this process and developing a community climate nature action plan. You'll see there's one from Emma, who's been working on our climate and disability work, and I think hers very much talks to that exclusion and accessibility element. And within all communities within the west of England, there will be members of the disabled community. So it's really important, because historically they've been largely excluded from climate policy, and that's something that really needs to change from the grassroots up. Got a nice quote there from lovely Maria, community development worker from Lockleys. And I think at the end there, that gives a little bit of a hint around the sort of the enthusiasm, the wisdom, the generosity, and the allyship from our community advocates in Bristol, whose experience and insights will be available to support their colleagues and their peers through this programme. And we have last one, nice quote from Donna there, who, if you haven't met her, is an amazing community advocate, and the work they've done in Lawrence Weston has very much seen the intersection of community development and climate and nature action. And Donna would say all community development is climate and nature action, and all climate and nature action is community development. So some snippets there from people who've been on the journey and who themselves, their organisations and their communities have benefited from going on this process. So there are many, many more insights from our community partners that might be useful to you, whether or not you decide to apply for this. And we'll be putting links in the chat and also sharing afterwards some of those resources that they've developed. So we've got some toolkits, stories of change, insights, reports and films, real rich theme of things that you might want to look at and benefit from, even if you don't decide to apply for this programme. So that's all from me for now. There's a lot of background and context, which is hopefully helpful on the programme. And I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Claire, who is going to tell you a bit more about the nuts and bolts of the capacity building programme and the budget and the application process. So over to you, Claire.
Thanks, Amy. Yes, I'm Claire Daly. I'm the coordinator for the Community Climate and Nature Action Project. Yes, I'm going to run over the details of the programme, and Reem's going to put a link into our information pack into the chat, which you should have already have and has all this information too. So there's 5 aspects of the capacity building programme. First is participation in learning workshops and peer mentoring. The second is engaging with your residents, local community groups and networks on climate and nature, and then using those responses to thirdly develop your climate and nature action plan. And we have a template that we've developed which you can use to help with that. Then activating the plan and the priorities within it, and wider project involvement. So next slide, please, Reem. So specifically, this will consist of 10 monthly workshops, learning and mentoring workshops over a year from next February to the following February, with a break at Christmas and summer. There'll be 4 online coffee mornings with regional peers that we'll organise, which are optional but may be helpful. We're going to bring together previous cohorts that have been involved in the project in a planned development day in April, so that you can ask some questions and benefit from their expertise. We're going to hold a roundtable event in May, where you'll have the opportunity to talk to regional experts, ask some questions and benefit from their technical expertise on your plans. And then hopefully we'll be ready to launch and celebrate your plans in the summer. So that will be not next summer, but the following summer, 27. So that will give you quite a bit of time to develop it. Throughout the programme, there'll be links with our wider partners that Amy went through, who those are, and you'll have a specific community advocate mentor who will be available for questions and support. As Amy said, we're hoping to develop a West of England community leadership panel, where we want to use community lived experience to input on relevant strategy and policy with a climate lens. We hope we'll be able to participate in our policy and evaluation workshops, and you'll be part of this regional collective of organisations who are involved in this work and can access resources that have already been developed, and hopefully develop your own resources too. Can we move on, please, Reem? So, as Amy said, this opportunity is for all voluntary community and social enterprise organisations of all sizes and types, based in the 3 unitary authorities of Baines, North Somerset or South Gloucestershire. The only caveat within that is, as was in the previous slide, we'd like to work with communities that are not already represented in the project. So do have a look at who we've funded before, and we particularly want to focus on areas of disadvantage and equalities groups within that. Groups don't have to have climate and nature experience. In actual fact, we'd really welcome the opportunity to focus on those who haven't had the chance or capacity to do this work before. We need organisations that are embedded within your community, whether that's a geographic community or a community of interest, and can represent their views. We will consider a collaboration between different organisations, but there is no additional funding. So in that case, you would have to decide between yourselves how funding was going to be split and how you would work out the roles between you. We have got an example of that happening already. And there are some organisational requirements with regard to your management and structure, which are pretty straightforward there. Thanks, Reem. Next slide. Okay, so there's 2 parts to the funding. So the 25k bursary is available for the successful community organisation in stage payments over the 2-year period of the project. Most of that 21,000 is for 70 days of core staff time for all the programme phases that I've just gone through to cover all of that. And then 4,000 is available for costs associated with travel, engagement events, printing, giving residents, participants vouchers to reimburse their time, all of those kind of things. There then is an additional £5,000 available for the Creative Commission, which will support your community engagement. And we've really found that that works well in Bristol to do that and to bring in wider representation from communities. And there also is a small project accessibility budget if required for things like alternative versions of resources, that kind of thing. Moving on to the next slide, Reem. Thank you. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the expression of interest form yet, but we've tried to keep it as concise as possible and as limit the number of questions to make it as straightforward for you to apply. So this is a summary of the information that we're asking for. So obviously about your organisation and your community, about specifically how your organisation represents and engages that community, and also how it collaborates with other organisations and stakeholders and networks locally. Why your organisation and community wants to participate in this programme, and how you ensure that your community engagement is including all different groups and is accessible. If you do have climate and nature experience, although obviously that's not necessary from what we've said, please include that for information. And we'd like to know about if you have a paid member of staff who can attend all the planned workshop dates, because continuity for that is quite important in the project. Thanks, Reem. Next slide. So the timeline from today, our online session, and we're going to hand over to you in a minute to ask your questions. We have until the second Thursday of January, isn't it? To put your applications in, and you can do that online through a Google form or by email. The applications will then be reviewed by our project panel, which includes some wide partners, and it will be based on the criteria which are in the information pack. I should just say here that local authorities are involved in the project as partners, and we will be asking them to review the applications from their area. They're not part of the panel, but we will take their views into consideration. And then by the 31st of January, we hope we'll be able to notify all applicants of the outcome. And then between that date and the first learning and mentoring workshop, which is on the 25th of February next year, we'll have an onboarding process where you'll get your partnership agreements and there'll be information exchange, and we'll get everything set up. And I think I'm handing back over to you now, Amy, for the question and answer session. Thank you.
Would help if a classic, it wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if someone didn't forget to unmute themselves, would it? Thank you, Claire. So yeah, we've got rid of the slide deck for now, and hopefully if you feel comfortable and would like to put your camera back on, please do, but there's no pressure to. So we've got some time now to respond to any questions or queries that anybody might have, either putting your hand up, or you might want to put it in the chat. We hope to be able to answer all of them now, but there might be something that might be more complex and we might have to come back to you afterwards, in which case we do it ASAP. We're also compiling an FAQs document as well, which we'll be adding to after today and circulating to everyone. Yeah, is any questions or queries you'd like to raise with us? Debbie.
Hiya.
Hello.
That was great. Thank you very much indeed for that slideshow. That was really enlightening. Um, I've got a couple of questions. You say about the paid members staff. Does that have to be on PAYE, or would it be like a freelance type person be acceptable? Because
Um,
a lot of the groups I know, I'm community lead here in Weston for the plastic free. So there's lots of nice, great community groups around the town, but I don't know how many have actually got PAYE staff as opposed to freelance staff. So,
um, we have had, so we would have a partnership agreement
mm,
um, we would need to have a partnership agreement with a lead organisation that has all of that. You moved around on my screen, sorry, Debbie. um,
I haven't moved anywhere.
no, I know. I don't know what you moved on my screen. Someone left. Um, so we would need an organisation that's got all of that is a constituted group to sign that
Mm,
partnership agreement. But we'd be quite open in terms of who and how they are getting the continued staff capacity to
yeah.
be involved. So we have had organisations that have had maybe like freelance artists or community engagement specialists who have been involved in the work.
Hmm.
So yeah, from our perspective, so long as there's a signed partnership agreement with the lead organisation and a named person, that's fine. And obviously that people are
Mm,
adhering to all fair and
yeah.
appropriate employment criteria.
Okay. That's the first question. The second one is you haven't mentioned a business community at all. Now, I know they're not specifically perhaps underprivileged as opposed to, but some of the small and medium, or especially the small businesses and the freelancers and things like that, they're sort of pivotal to getting a nature plan in place. And working with the Chamber of Commerce, we are struggling quite a lot to get engagement through the small businesses and the one man B&Bs and that kind of people who again are pivotal to reducing their or getting involved in nature and climate. Some are really keen, and others we just cannot engage at all. And I just wondered whether business groups would
Yeah,
be part of that.
it's a really good point because obviously businesses are a core part of any community, and within the
Mhm,
community climate action plans, there is a section of priorities that's about sort of education, skills, and businesses. This
mhm.
opportunity is not directly open and available to businesses because it's grant
Okay.
funding, so it's for not for profit. However,
Mm,
our other one of our other core projects at Bristol Climate Nature Partnership is our climate action program for businesses.
okay.
So at the moment, it is primarily working with
Mhm,
businesses within Bristol, but we are looking to expand and kind of support other places across the region. But we'll make sure we include a link in the follow-up email. There's a huge range of resources that have been developed for businesses of all different shapes and sizes to
mm,
help them right from the very early start of their journey. So we can definitely share that, and
mm.
it's really interesting and useful for us to know that there's potentially perhaps a need and a demand for that kind of business
Yeah.
support within your
Well,
area too.
our Chamber of Commerce is all voluntary and we're a
Yeah,
not-for-profit group, but obviously the businesses aren't. That's their
yeah,
livelihood. So that's why I wanted to clarify that
yeah.
before going querying that. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Debbie. Gaia, I hope I've said that correctly, and I think you were next.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, thank you. That was really, really informative. I've got a couple of questions as well. So there was obviously you've mentioned that you've got six. You're looking for six organisations, sort of two in each of the geographic areas. Are you kind of looking for like demographic focus in those? So I'm just thinking, for example, we. So I'm from the Diversity Trust. We focus. We're sort of LGBT specialists in South Gloucester. Would you be looking or sort of open to that being a specific focus within South Gloss, or are you kind of looking more for the South Gloss community, if that makes sense? And I'm sort of thinking that just because if perhaps we could focus on the LGBT community, for example, I know we have done a lot of work in terms of Baines and putting the North Somerset group together as well, and sort of supporting that. And I did see you mention something around like a larger regional demographic community focus. So I don't know. I'm just trying to work out where best to sit with our work, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, very much interested in both communities of place, but also demographic communities. So definitely, and across the work we've done so far, there is a bit of a demographic gap in terms of we haven't as yet worked with a community on a climate and nature action plan for a community, an LGBTQ plus community. So that's definitely something of interest. And I think you were talking about South Gloss particularly. But South Gloucestershire have done quite a lot of work with parish councils already around sort of like local, more place-based stuff. So complementing that with a demographic community might be a really good intersection in terms of a representation of the kind of layers of community within the area. So yes, definitely, I think would be worth you having a look and maybe applying.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you for that. I think the other question I had was, I know you mentioned sort of collaboration, and obviously in the spirit of partner working. Is that kind of like for one community group? Is that sort of collaboration from our side to kind of come to it, or would you be open to say, this is just putting thoughts in the air, but for example, South Gloss Race Equality Network, whether there's something there that could be a partnership for the two organisations, if that makes sense, as a kind of I don't know necessarily like a demographic focus for both. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's it's an interesting one, and I think across the six we want to try and get a sort of portfolio that fills some of those gaps. So we don't quite know how that the kind of demographic gaps are going to be filled. We definitely, in terms of collaboration, we need to have a sort of a partnership agreement with one organisation if they want to work in collaboration with somebody else. It's entirely possible that both you and the Race Equity Network might both apply separately, and there could be an instance where it was just demographic communities, or we would be open to the two organisations applying as a collaboration. But we would probably need a partnership agreement to be signed with one of the organisations, and then between the two of you, working out that division of how the funding is going to be split, how the community engagement is going to be split. If that hopefully sort of answers your question.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great. Thank you. Kate, I think you were next, and then Richard.
Hello. Nice to see you. Just to say, Gaia, I'm also in South Gloss, and would love to connect with you and to talk about the stuff that we do and the stuff that you do, and how we could collaborate, not necessarily in the context of this, but maybe also in the context of this. I'll send you a message. So I'm a director for an environmental network, and we cover lots of things. So we do repair cafes, we're setting up a library of things, we run a community food growing project, we are doing a variety of things that tick your boxes, and we are working with marginalized people, and we would love to be able to extend that. I suppose what I'm kind of hearing, though, is that maybe because we're already doing all of those things, we don't meet the criteria for this. What do you think?
I get, so we're predominantly trying to target community organisations that don't have a specialism already and a specific or sole focus on climate and nature. So I don't know whether you would put your organisation within that category. We are trying to sort of support and build capacity within community organisations that have done less or not so much work in this area. So I don't know. Yeah, would you define yourself as definitively primarily a sort of environmental organisation, and that's the core purpose? So I think that's the thing. We're ideally looking for community organisations of which I guess community in however that manifests is their primary purpose, and that's the community development is the primary purpose, and delivered across lots of different agendas and about catalysing climate and nature to be part of that agenda. So
yes, it's really hard to unthread it though, isn't it? Because as we've already discussed, most of the stuff that we do, I would say a lot of the people are engaged with the work that we do with the community lens on. So no, that's really tough. But it sounds like we're not therefore going to meet your criteria. But nevertheless, whilst you were talking, I was thinking of all amazing and wonderful things that we could weave in with partners that we are already working with and that we want to work with.
And maybe it is a collaboration. So maybe if you're doing that work and you're partnering with a local organisation, someone who you already partner with, whose sort of primary focus is community development, and it's a kind of a working together to build and expand is a possibility. And we don't want to say no to anyone.
Of course,
but I guess it's just that in terms of the criteria, if you exist primarily already with a climate and nature purpose, then it would probably be scored lower based upon that.
So if we were to say do a joint application, I've already got a list of, I don't know, 6 different organisations that perhaps are more community focused that we would like to collaborate with on something like this. How does that work with the funding? Because if 21,000 of it is going to pay for an individual to oversee the project, how would the partners in the project be remunerated?
The budget is a fixed envelope, and we've worked that out. We've mapped out all of the engagements, so which is why we have arrived at that 70 days of paid time. So that is the challenge around a collaboration. You would have to work out how you dovetail together, because that it would be working within that envelope, and it might be that one organisation is maybe predominantly doing some community engagement as one doing the other, and you'd have to look at the mechanisms for working together and when how you're going to connect. We have had one example of a collaboration in Bristol. It was really interesting, and it brought different perspectives because it was different types. And in some ways it was a bit challenging as well. So I think agreeing who was doing what at the beginning with clarity would be a really important.
And so the 21,000 is a guide for how you got to the figure, but if you're working with partners, then there's capacity for that money to be split according to who's doing what within the delivery. Okay, that's really clear, thank you. And then just one more question. I missed the first 5 minutes, I'm sorry, I couldn't find the link. So my understanding, just from what I heard, is that the project is to develop a plan with the community that focuses on community and climate. So when you're filling out the application form, you might have some ideas of what that plan may include, and you might propose some partners for the delivery of that work, but the actual plan would probably be more likely to dictate what is actually will be the thing that dictates what's actually delivered after the plan's been developed with the community. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the whole purpose is you might have ideas, but you need to do broad and wide and deep engagement with many different stakeholders in your community to arrive at a set of priorities. So the plans have about 8 different themes in, and you'd be developing priorities across all of those different themes. So although you might have ideas, one needs to listen and kind of work and then prioritize based upon what you hear coming through from your communities.
And that would be part of this process rather than done before the great.
Yeah, it's the core part of the process. Yeah, the core part of the process. So developing community organisations' capacity through the workshop. So learning lots of skills around climate and nature from different experts, then funded time to go and do engagement with your community, including that creative commission. So working with an artist to help do some creative engagement, then pulling all of that engagement together into a set of priorities, which then goes into the plan, the Community Climate and Nature Action Plan at the end.
Thank you.
And there's got lots of examples of some of the plans from Bristol on our website, and we can share links to those so you can see how they manifest.
Thank you so
So
much. Thanks.
thanks, Kate. And then just quickly, I think we've got time for Richard. Hi, Richard.
So I'm here as a member of the True Valley Nature Recovery Network, and so I'm very much coming from a rural community standpoint, which I've from what I've heard so far, almost everything is urban. I wonder whether the models are slightly different for a rural environment and how this might work, because from our standpoint, we're very much dealing with trying to build networks that would help with genuinely nature recovery, and building networks of people that want to actively work with nature recovery, actually probably be, boots on the ground to help with various projects in the region that will help to recovery, degraded nature, and will probably worked with other sort of trusts and organizations. How would that, do you see that actually working within your model? I'm seeing almost, and this is not meant, I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, but I'm seeing more your motivation is more for the social side rather than nature and climate side.
There's duality, I think, because we're very interested in the program about the duality of improving quality of life and taking action on climate and nature, because of that sort of ultimate goal of a just transition and making sure the transition is responding to systemic inequality. So in terms of, we are very interested in rural communities and how that works differently, but we are trying to unlock the capacity of the community infrastructure that exists everywhere to be agents for change, and making sure that, as I said, a really diverse range of people, not necessarily people that are already switched on, engaged, passionate about climate and nature, trying to unlock a wider group of people. So it might be that you're already sort of too particularly focused on nature, but again, the rural element is really important, and that there might be an opportunity to, I don't know what other partners, kind of like community and civic partners that you work with, that there might be an opportunity for a collaboration to work together, could be a possibility. I hope that helps a little bit.
I think Phil, I see, has got his hand up, and it would be great if he's a sort of somebody who's a colleague in our area. So I think I'm going to stop there, because he probably has an interesting point to make, if you can give him a few minutes.
Yeah, I think thanks, Richard. So I think Phil or Philip, I've got a minute or so if you just want to add to that. Oh, we can't hear you, Phil. Sorry, I think you're muted. Oh, got no sound. Sorry.
Maybe you could put your question in the chat, Phil.
Yeah, if you've got a response or a comment or a question, pop it in the chat, and then we can always get back to you via email afterwards. So I think, unless anyone's got anything super burning, put it in the chat.
There's one more in the chat, Amy, from David, about whether a nature-focused organisation that wanted to engage with and build new communities would fit the brief.
I think that's again, it's probably a similar response to the ones that we've just had. It be depending on who is the lead applicant for that, because we are primarily trying to target community organisations who haven't got a remit so far delivering climate and nature, but an opportunity for collaboration. So I think if you are already an organisation that is focused on climate and nature, it would be more about looking to find a community or sort of civil society partner to collaborate with, would be the potential way forward. So please do, if you've got any other questions, pop them in the chat, and we're just going to, because we've got a couple of minutes left, and I know people have probably got other things to go to, so I don't want to overrun. Thank you very much for those questions, really appreciate it, and hope been able to respond to them to some degree. But as I said, if you've got any more queries, do follow up. Reem, if I can just ask you thank you, to pop up just a final couple of slides. So just in terms of a what next, if you are interested in applying and you think from all you've heard it kind of fits the bill with what you want to do and you fit the criteria, do a deep dive again into the information packs. We put lots of detail within there. Check that you would potentially, or a representative from your organisation or your network would have capacity to attend the workshop dates. We've deliberately pre-scheduled them all for the whole of the programme to sort of help the process. And then, yeah, if you're interested, either there's a Google form, a Word version of the form, or you can do an audio or video response to the form to make it more accessible. Thursday the 8th, end of the day, is the deadline. Any other questions or queries or that have come up from this or you think about over the next month, please do just get in touch with our contact our email address, and we will try to get back to you as soon as we can. And then just jumping over, I think, onto the last slide, please, Reem. Thank you. So yeah, just to say thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. We hope it's been helpful. We are going to make the recording of the session, we will circulate to you afterwards, along with the slide deck and our ever-expanding FAQs document. But those things will also be available on our website in the next couple of days as well. If it doesn't feel quite the right match for you, please do share it with any organisations or contacts within your networks for who you think it might be a good opportunity. We'd really appreciate that. And yeah, but if it is, then we're very much looking forward to receiving an expression of interest from you. And I thought I would just end with a quote from Margaret Mead that we've used a lot throughout this project, because it sort of, yeah, again, encapsulates the power of community, of sometimes when we're feeling small, but how when we come together, we can make really significant change happen. So yeah, thanks all for joining us, and yeah, we look forward to receiving applications, and have a good rest of afternoon, and thanks for taking some time to come and find out more about the programme, and do get in touch if you've got any other queries. Thank you.